Christmas comes to those who wait, and time suspends the hand of fate for you and me.
All right, hello there, thrill seekers. That was a bit of a song called Christmas Comes to Those Who Wait, and that was my contribution to an album called Oh No, Not Another Midnight Christmas Mess, which was released in 1986. It was a Christmas album by the label that I was on, which was called Midnight Records, and their first Christmas album was Midnight Christmas Mess. Their second one was No, Not Another Midnight Christmas Mess, and their third one was called Midnight Christmas Mess Part 3, and I was on the last two, on the Oh No, Not Another and the Part 3. And I'm going to re-record my contribution to Part 3 as soon as I can listen to it. I actually don't have copies of those albums, so I had to go order them on Discogs. And maybe I'll show them to you when they arrive. But that one I actually had a recording of here at home, so I could listen to it. But the other one I don't seem to have, so I'm going to have to get a copy of the record to listen to my own song. Which is what happens to you in this business. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, if you are in France, you can now read my book, Don't Be a Jerk, which is called Comprendre Dogen, I think is it. Well, I don't know how you pronounce it. Anyway, I believe the title translates to Understanding Dogen, and here is the cover, in case you want to see it. I like the cover. The folks who put the book out seem to be under the impression that I don't like the cover. I do like the cover. I'm just a little bit concerned that people might think that the book is going to be a really serious and scholarly book with a cover like that. But I don't know. It looks a little bit manga-ish, so maybe I don't know what sort of impression people are going to get. But I like it. It's an attractive-looking cover. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about is something that I do not have, and that is charisma. And I remember having a teacher or professor in college, don't remember who the professor was or what he was professing about, but he mentioned that the word charisma used to be reserved specifically for Jesus Christ. So only Jesus Christ had charisma, but nowadays it's used for, all kinds of people. And it's something I don't have. A lot of people write to me asking, how can I be your student? And I always feel like, and sometimes I even say this directly, like, you don't want to be my student. Believe me, everybody who's ever been my student has walked away in utter disappointment and ended up being like, oh, that Brad, he's just awful, and I was so disappointed, and he's no. And so you don't want to be my student. Every single one has been tragically disappointed. And what it feels like to me is like, if I take you on, or whoever, or someone on as a student, what I'm taking on is the burden of somebody who's just going to be he's going to want something from me that I can't possibly give, which is charisma and hugs and affirmation and, oh, you're doing so well in your spiritual quest and all that sort of garbage, which I don't do. The other day I got an email from somebody who was talking about a certain spiritual teacher that he worked with, and he was telling me how much charisma, he didn't use this word, but how much energy he felt from this guy, and how he felt this kind of tingle of electricity every time this guy was around, and even when he shook hands with the guy, he felt this kind of like, kind of magic power going into him. And I'm not singling you out in case you're the guy that wrote me that email, because yours is just the latest in a number of emails I've gotten over the years about teachers like that. And I have encountered teachers like that myself. And the most sort of the one that sticks out in my mind the most is the one I wrote about in my book Hardcore Zen. And I believe he went by he was a Hare Krishna dude. He was a priest or whatever. I don't know what you call the guys in the Hare Krishnas who are empowered to give talks and things. But he was a Hare Krishna guy who was empowered to give talks, and he was a guru of some kind. I don't know if what the word they use. And I think his name was something like Tapapunja or something, he went by, but his real name was Terry something. And I remember sitting at this guy's feet in a room, probably somewhere on Kent State University campus, and feeling like, this surge of charisma or something, this kind of energy coming from him, and feeling like, I just want to sit at his feet and listen to the beautiful teachings for the rest of my life. And somehow or another, I didn't end up doing that, but maybe a year after this, I was looking at the newspaper. I don't remember what's the newspaper in Kent. Not the Kent Stater, which was the newspaper of the university, but the local newspaper. Anyway, there was his picture on the front page, Terry's picture on the front page, and the story was about how he was wanted in conjunction with a murder in Los Angeles, and this murder was written about extensively in a book called Monkey on a Stick that I read much later, because it wasn't published until much later, and I read all about Terry didn't commit the murder. He was never accused of that, but he was one of a group of people who was trying to smuggle the murderer out of the country so that he wouldn't get caught and besmirch the good name of the Hare Krishnas, which, that never, in case you're thinking of doing something like that one of these days, it never works. I've never heard of a single time where that's ever worked. People always get caught, and he got caught, and the murderer got caught, and it definitely besmirched the name of the Hare Krishnas for years, and they're finally kind of crawling out from under it. But the thing is, that was a wake-up call for me about charisma, and I've met a few people here and there. Another charismatic person I met who I was not taken in by was Amma, the hugging saint. I don't know if you've heard of this woman. She's a Hindu saint of some kind, who's this kind of, frumpy middle-aged woman, basically, Indian woman, who is reported by her followers to have great spiritual power. And I did this thing because a friend of mine wanted to go and see Amma. And they do this thing to you where when you're waiting to see Amma, first you're on some chairs, and then you wait on those chairs for a long time, and then you kneel on the floor for a while after you get off the chairs, and then one by one you get taken up to get a hug from Amma, and she whispers a mantra in your ear, which to me sounded like Megillah, Megillah, Megillah. And then they spin you around. This is the cute trick they did, which I was kind of impressed by. Which whenever somebody is done with their Amma hug, they take the person and spin him or her. Sorry, I knocked into the microphone. I hope that didn't make a weird noise. Anyway, they spin the person around, and then they release me back into the crowd, and so you're kind of dizzy. And I guess the idea is, you're supposed to be so overwhelmed by the meeting of Amma and the hug from Amma that you don't notice that you've actually been spun around, and that's why you're dizzy. So that I guess you're supposed to feel like, that dizziness must be the ecstasy I'm feeling from the spiritual charge of her. But the thing is, a lot of times this quality of charisma, that personal magnetism, that sort of glow that some people have, that sort of energy one feels when one is around certain people who have that kind of ability, is often mistaken as some kind of spiritual power. I'm feeling this energy from this person because he has this spiritual power. And it's not. It's nothing to do with that. I've actually felt the same thing when I met Gene Simmons of KISS. I met Gene Simmons a couple of times when I was working for Tsuburaya Productions, because we were talking to him about doing some kind of a KISS TV series, which I wanted to be like a live action, Ultraman type. Ultraman is not done with cartoons. Everybody thinks it is, but it's not. It's a live action show with guys in rubber suits and miniature sets and all the stuff like the old Godzilla movies were. And I thought it'd be great to make a Kiss series like that, but of course it never happened. But I felt that same thing from Gene Simmons. Now, nobody is going to think Gene Simmons is exuding that sort of charisma because of his spiritual power, because he doesn't present himself as a spiritual leader. But that same kind of person who's got the Gene Simmons type of charisma and energy, a lot of people you meet in the entertainment business have that. And I met more entertainers and people in the entertainment business when I was working in Subaraya Productions who have that than I have spiritual masters. So I can kind of make that judgment a bit easier than maybe somebody who hasn't had that experience. But actors and famous people often have that, and that's what, that's how they get famous. It's probably why I haven't gotten real famous, because I don't have that charisma and that magnetism and that thing that nobody ever comes away from meeting me going, oh, I felt such great spiritual energy coming off of Brad. Nobody ever says that, thank God. But that's one thing I think one should be aware of and one should beware of, because it's very easy to misuse that kind of thing, and it has nothing in the least to do with any sort of spiritual attainment or anything like that, or enlightenment or anything like that. It's a completely separate facet that some people just happen to possess. And I don't know why they possess it. It could be some inborn thing that they were born with. It could be something they've learned over the years. Maybe they were captain of their football team in high school or whatever, and they learned how to, get the chicks or whatever. I don't know what they were doing. But it's the kind of thing that a lot of the most famous spiritual teachers have it. And I just think it's something. Personally, I am wary of it. Whenever I have met somebody like that after I met Terry, who was in the spiritual game, or even in the entertainment business game, I was wary of that because I was thinking, oh, this is something that people use to manipulate. It's a kind of manipulation thing, and all it really indicates is a high potential, a high ability, or something like that, to manipulate others. So I would stay away from any teacher who exudes too much charisma. I suppose it's not impossible for a teacher to be both charismatic and enlightened at the same time. I haven't met any, but I suppose it's possible. Nishijima Roshi was not charismatic at all. My first Zen teacher, Tim, was the opposite of charismatic. So my teachers have not had that quality, and I think it's good because it's allowed me to have a more realistic view of who they are. So I just thought I'd make a little video about that because I think it's an important issue, and I just want to kind of put that out there and tell you that be careful if you run into a spiritual teacher who's got a lot of charisma, a lot of zazz, and a lot of electricity and whatever coming out of him or her. It's probably a combination of a lot of things. There's this sort of idol worship. I think with Gene Simmons, that was with me, because I'd been a fan of Kiss since I was 13 or 12 years old, and then I get to meet Gene Simmons in person and talk to him about a business deal. So I was very starstruck, even as much as I wanted to be not that, I was. And so you have that combination coming from both the person who meets the spiritual teacher and the spiritual teacher himself. And it's a dangerous combination, and that's all I wanted to say about that. I don't have any great insights into where it comes from or anything. But anyway, if you want to support my lack of charisma, you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and my Patreon accounts. Those are my main ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, have a good time all the time. Bye.
Charisma? Do you have doggy charisma? Do you have doggy charisma? I don't know. You're very cute, though, and very cuddly. That's attractive. All right, let's go inside. You want to go inside, Ziggy? Want to go inside? Go inside? Yeah? All right, let's go inside and where it's warm.